Abdas.
Abbot, father, the name and title of the superior of an autonomous monastery of one of the monastic orders, i.e., Benedictine Camaldolese, Vallombrosan, Cistercian, Norbertine.
Abdas nullius.
An abbot who has actual episcopal jurisdiction over all clergy and laity in a specified territory subject directly to the abbey.
Archiabdas, abdas praeses, abdas generalis.
Designations for an abbot who is head of a monastic congregation.
Abdas primas.
Abbot primate or head of today's Benedictine Confederation.
Abdas titularis.
One who has the rank, title, and insignia of an abbot but does not govern the abbey whose name he bears.
Abdas incommendum.
A person who was allotted the usufruct of a monastic benefice and its revenue.
Forbidden by the Council of Trent.
Ab initio.
From the beginning.
Ab ipso convento.
By the very man summoned or cited.
Abjuratio.
Abjuration, the process whereby apostates, heretics, and schismatics renounce their errors in order to be reconciled to the Church.
Abrogatio.
Abrogation, the cancellation, repeal, or abolishment of an entire law by revocation of competent authority.
Absolutio generalis.
General absolution, absolution granted to a large number of people at one time without individual confession of sin and allowed under certain conditions.
Acceptio.
Acceptance, the act of the candidate accepting an office that has previously been proffered in an election needing no confirmation.
Acta causae.
Acts.
Records.
Of the case.
Acta processus.
Acts.
Records.
Of the process.
Actus hominis.
An act of a human being performed without deliberate reason and will, and which is immoral.
Actus humanus.
A human act proceeding from deliberate reason and will, and which is subject to moral evaluation.
Actus judicialis.
Judicial act, an act performed by a judge in the course of a trial.
Actus juridicus.
Juridic act, an act that has legal effect or recognition by the church authority.
Ad catholici sacerdotii.
Of the Catholic priesthood, an encyclical of Pius XI on the Catholic priesthood, 1935.
Ad gentes.
To the nations, Decree of Vatican II on the Church's missionary activity, 1965.
Ad limina.
At the threshold, name given to the periodic visit of each diocesan bishop who is required to come on a scheduled basis to the city of Rome to venerate the tombs of the blessed apostles Peter and Paul and to visit the Roman pontiff.
Admissio.
Admission, the act of the superior conferring an office on an eligible candidate who has previously been designated by postulation.
Advena.
Temporary resident, a person who has a quasi-domicile.
Advocatus.
Advocate, a person in the ecclesiastical tribunal system who is appointed to safeguard the rights of a client and who assists in drafting the
Libellus.
Of a case.
Equitas.
Equity, prudent moderation of the written law against the right of the words of the law.
Etas superadulta.
Supradult age, relatively advanced age, a possible reason for a dispensation, recommended at one time for parish domestic help.
A fortiori.
From the stronger
Position.
All the more reason for, used in drawing a conclusion from a point that is considered more certain than another.
Affinitas.
Affinity, relationship, a spiritual and or blood relationship that becomes an impediment to marriage.
Code of Canon Law 1092.
Angusta loci.
Narrowness or smallness of the place, possible reason for a dispensation.
Animadversiones.
Remarks, observations, the comments of the defender of the bond upholding the validity of a particular marriage under investigation by a church court.
Annuario pontificio.
Pontifical Annual, the official directory of the Holy See published annually and containing lists of offices of the Holy See and the names of cardinals, bishops, prelates, and dioceses throughout the entire world.
Annuit acceptis.
He has nodded assent to the things begun.
Apostasia.
Apostasy, the total repudiation of the Christian faith.
Apostolatus.
Apostolate, a general term referring to the particular way a member of the church carries out his or her part of the church's mission, i.e., family, teaching, lay, or priestly apostolates.
Apostolica administratio.
Apostolic administration, The administration of a certain portion of the people of God, not yet erected into a diocese by the Pope, and whose pastoral care is entrusted to an apostolic administrator who governs in the name of the Supreme Pontiff.
Apostolica exhortatio.
Apostolic exhortation, the name given to a pope's reflections on a certain topic, which do not contain dogmatic definitions or policy directives. Exhortations are not legislative.
A posteriori.
From the latter, from inductive reasoning, from observed facts.
Apostolica prefectura.
Apostolic prefecture, a portion of the people of God cared for by an apostolic prefect appointed by the Supreme Pontiff.
Apostolica signatura.
Apostolic signatura, the supreme tribunal of the Church.
Apostolicae constitutiones.
Apostolic constitutions, documents considered of the most solemn form, issued by the Pope in his own name, which deal with doctrinal or disciplinary matters and are issued only in relation to most weighty questions. They are published as either universal or particular law.
Apostolicam actuositatem.
Apostolic activity, Decree of Vatican II on the Apostolate of the Laity, 1965.
Apostolicus delegatus.
Apostolic delegate, a prelate sent by the Pope to countries which do not have full diplomatic relations with the Holy See and whose ordinary function is to keep the Pope informed about the condition of the Church in that territory.
Apostolicus vicariatus.
Apostolic vicariate, a certain portion of the people of God, not yet erected into a diocese, whose pastoral care belongs to an apostolic vicar, who governs in the name of the Supreme Pontiff.
A priori.
From the former, from inductive reasoning, self-evidently.
Archiepiscopus.
Archbishop, the ordinary of an archdiocese who presides over his ecclesiastical province. Each of the other bishops in that province is a suffragan.
Archiepiscopus major.
Major Archbishop, a metropolitan of a see, determined by the supreme authority of the Church, who presides over an entire Eastern Church.
Sui iuris.
And is not endowed with the patriarchal title.
Code of Canons of the Eastern Churches 151.
Archivum.
Archives, the depository where all documents pertaining to the spiritual and temporal affairs of the diocese are preserved.
Argumentum ad hominem.
An argument directed toward or based on human nature, evidence or proof based on principles admitted by human beings.
Arianismus.
Arianism, the heresy of Arius, a priest of Alexandria in the 3rd century, who held that the Son was neither equal to the Father nor divine. It was condemned at the First Ecumenical Council held in Nicaea in 325.
Ascriptio ut clericus.
Enrollment as a cleric.
Code of Canons of the Eastern Churches 357.
The process in the Eastern Churches whereby one is enrolled either in some eparchy or exarchy or religious institute or society of common life by diaconal ordination.
Auditor.
Auditor, a person, often a judge, who gathers proofs, summons and hears witnesses, and draws up the record of a judicial case but does not actually decide it.
Auxiliaris episcopus.
Auxiliary bishop, a bishop appointed by the Pope who acts as an aid to the bishop of a diocese who may need help because of age, sickness, or a great amount of work. He is a titular bishop.
Benedictus.
Blessed, the opening words of the Canticle of Zachary as found in Luke 1, 68-79 and used in morning prayer of the Divine Office.
Beneficium.
Benefice, a juridic entity permanently established or created by competent ecclesiastical authority consisting of a sacred office and the right to receive the revenues from the endowment attached to that office.
Bonum coniugum.
The good of the spouses, as traditionally held by St. Augustine, this meant children, fidelity, and sacramentality. In more recent times these words include the partnership of life and love.
Bonum ecclesiae.
The good of the Church.
Bona ecclesiastica.
Ecclesiastical goods, all temporal goods that belong to the universal Church, the Apostolic See, or other juridic persons in the Church.
Bona fide.
Good faith, a prudent judgment by which one holds that one's actions are proper and right.
Bonum fide.
The good of fidelity, an object of marital consent by which partners in a marriage hand over to each other the right to a sexually exclusive or faithful relationship.
Bonum prolis.
The good of offspring, an object of marital consent by which partners in a marriage hand over to each other the right to acts that of themselves are open to procreation of offspring.
Bonum sacramenti.
The good of the sacrament, an object of marital consent by which the partners in a marriage make a commitment to an indissoluble union.
Brevia.
Briefs, documents, developed out of the notion of bulls, to which a waxen seal
Bula.
is affixed. They usually deal with minor affairs but sometimes are issued on major matters.
Bulle.
Bulls, important papal documents that take their name from the seal of lead appended to, or impressed upon, the paper or parchment and bearing on one side the images of Saints Peter and Paul and on the other the name of the reigning pope.
Bullaria.
Collections in chronological order of the Roman pontiff's bulls, constitutions, acts, briefs, and other letters that are not found in the decretum or the collections of decretals.
Camera apostolica.
Apostolic Chamber, an office of the Roman Curia entrusted with the administration of temporal goods of the Holy See.
Cancellaria apostolica.
Apostolic Chancery, an office of the Roman Curia in charge of the establishment of new dioceses and of the preparation of decretals and papal bulls.
Canonicalis.
Canonical, describes a just and reasonable cause for granting a dispensation from ecclesiastical laws.
Canonica missio.
Canonical mission, the conferring of an ecclesiastical office by the competent church authority in accordance with the sacred canons.
Caput canonum.
Chapter of Canons, a corporate body of clerics attached by ecclesiastical authority to a church for the purpose of performing the functions of the liturgy. Specifically, a cathedral chapter is a corporate body of clerics established by the Roman Pontiff in a cathedral church for the principal purpose of assisting the bishop as his counsel in accordance with canon law and of assuming the government of the diocese when the see becomes vacant, and for the secondary purpose of promoting in the cathedral the more solemn observance of the liturgy in accordance with the sacred canons.
Cardinalis.
Cardinal, in the Roman Catholic Church, a member of a special college the responsibility of which is to provide for the election of the Roman Pontiff in accord with the norm of special law. The cardinals also assist the Roman Pontiff collegially when they are called together to deal with questions of major importance. Likewise, they individually assist the Roman Pontiff in the daily care of the universal Church by means of the different offices they perform.
Caritas prima sibi.
The first charity is to itself.
Casti connubii.
Of chaste marriage, an encyclical of Pius XI on Christian marriage, 1930.
Catechumenatus.
Catechumenate, a process of instruction and formation for entrance into the Church. Vatican II restored the catechumenate as part of the rite of Christian initiation of adults.
RCIA.
Cathedraticum.
An annual contribution to the support of the diocese from all churches and benefices in the diocese.
Catholic Charities.
An agency or office existing in most dioceses to aid in taking care of the temporal needs of the people.
Cattolici.
Catholics, those baptized who are fully in communion with the Catholic Church on earth being joined with Christ in its visible structure by the bonds of
1.
profession of faith,
2.
the sacraments, and
3.
ecclesiastical governance.
Causa efficiens.
Effecting cause, the agent that produces an effect by its action.
Causa excusans.
Excusing cause, a cause that renders the observance of a law impossible or extremely difficult, while the person remains a subject of the law or superior.
Causa exemplaris.
Exemplary cause, a model or pattern in the likeness of which an effect is produced.
Causa eximens.
Removing cause, a cause in virtue of which a person ceases to be a subject of the law as the cause may actually remove the person from the jurisdiction of the superior.
Causa finalis.
Final cause, the good in view of which an agent acts.
Causa formalis.
Formal cause, the intrinsic specifying principle giving a being its particular mode of being.
Causa materialis.
Material cause, the matter or potential principle of a being.
Celebret.
He may celebrate, a document issued by a local ordinary or religious superior that testifies that a priest is in good standing. It is used as proof that a priest is allowed to celebrate Mass or other functions.
Censura.
Censure, a penalty that deprives a baptized person who has committed a crime and is contumacious of certain spiritual goods until he or she repents the misdeed and is absolved. There are 3 classes of censures: excommunication, suspension, and interdict.
Cancellarius.
Chancellor, the officer within a diocesan curia whose principal responsibility is the care of the archives, correspondence of the diocese, and those administrative duties entrusted by the diocesan bishop.
Charismaticus.
Charismatic, from the Greek for gift or grace. Charismatic refers to the gifts of the Holy Spirit as they are manifested in the lives of individuals and communities. These gifts take many forms, including the gifts of prayer commonly associated with Catholic charismatic renewal.
Chrismatio sanctimiri.
Chrismation with Holy Myron, the sacrament of chrismation.
Confirmation.
In the Eastern churches,
Christi fideles.
the Christian faithful, inasmuch as they have been incorporated in Christ through baptism, they have been constituted as the people of God.
Christus Dominus.
Christ the Lord, Decree of Vatican II on the Bishop's Pastoral Office in the Church, 1965.
Circular letters.
A relatively new form of pronouncement from the Roman Curia, often accompanying a set of norms or laws on a given subject.
Circumincessio.
The shared existence of the three divine persons in the same being.
Citatio.
Citation, a judicial summons informing the respondent of the existence of a
Libellus.
and calling for a written response to the claim.
Coadjutor episcopus.
Coadjutor bishop, an auxiliary bishop appointed by the Holy See who receives special faculties and possesses the right of succession.
Codex Canonum Ecclesiarum Orientalium.
Code of Canons of the Eastern Churches, promulgated by John Paul II in 1990.
Co-disciples.
A term used by the United States bishops at the 1987 Synod to signify the equality and close working relationship of all the members of the Church as disciples of the Lord.
Cogito ergo sum.
I think, therefore I am, the statement of the 17th century philosopher Descartes, used to prove his own existence.
Collaboratio.
Collaboration, the working together of all the baptized, clergy and laity, each contributing specific gifts.
Collegialis actus.
Collegial act, a decision reached by all the delegates of a college together, arrived at by an absolute majority vote.
Collegium consultorum.
College of Consultors, 6 to 12 priests appointed by the bishop from among the members of the Presbyterial Council to provide financial advice to the bishop and to function when the see is impeded or vacant.
Collegium sacrum.
College of Cardinals.
Commune bonum.
Common good, the sum of those conditions of social life which allow social groups and their individual members relatively thorough and ready access to their own fulfillment.
Gaudium et spes.
Number 26.
Communicatio in sacris.
Participation in sacred rites, sharing sacraments or other liturgical worship with those of other faith communities.
Communio.
Communion, the sharing of the Eucharist, Holy Communion.
Communio.
Communion designates the close, spiritual bonds among the baptized who are in union with Jesus.
Communio conjugalis vitae.
Bond of conjugal life.
Communio totalis vitae.
Bond of total life.
Communis error.
Common error, an error common to the people of a place where an act of jurisdiction is being exercised in which the Church supplies the jurisdiction, thought erroneously to be possessed by the individual, as far as it is needed.
Conciliares constitutiones.
Conciliar constitutions, documents addressed to the universal Church.
Conciliares declarationes.
Conciliar declarations, documents that are policy statements giving the ordinary teaching of the Church.
Conciliaria decreta.
Conciliar decrees, council documents directed more specifically to a given category of the faithful or to a special form of apostolate.
Conciliaria nuntia.
Conciliar messages, exhortations addressed to various categories of people at the conclusion of the final session of a council.
Concilium.
Council, a group of advisers whose consent or advice one in authority must seek as required by general or particular law. The Latin
Concilium.
and the Greek
Synodus.
are interchangeable. Therefore a council or a synod in the strict sense meant a gathering together of people. Councils are legally convened assemblies of ecclesiastical dignitaries for the purpose of discussing and determining matters of an ecclesiastical nature. Councils were historically classified, ecumenical,
Whole world, universal.
plenary,
More than one jurisdiction, for example, of a nation or country.
Provincial.
Local.
Concordatum.
Concordat, an agreement between the Church and a sovereign state having the force of law regarding matters of mutual concern such as the appointment of bishops, legal actions against clerics and members of religious institutes, and other matters agreed upon in the document.
Confessio.
Confession, a written or oral assertion against oneself made by a party regarding a matter under trial. This word also is used to refer to the sacrament of reconciliation.
Congregationes Romani.
Roman congregations, permanent committees of cardinals, bishops, and others in Rome in charge of various aspects of the administration and governance of the Church.
Congrua congruis referendo.
By referring the proper matters to the proper people.
Consanguinitas.
Consanguinity, blood relationship. The impediment of consanguinity is a relationship between persons based on carnal generation. It is computed in the direct and collateral lines.
Code of Canon Law 1091.
Consensus matrimonialis.
Matrimonial agreement or consent, the act of the will by which a marriage is created by a man and a woman who are capable of marriage according to the formalities recognized by law.
Consortium coniugalis vitae.
Partnership of conjugal life. This is a term used to describe marriage as an intimate partnership of life and love with the characteristics of self-revelation, understanding, and caring.
Gaudium et spes.
Number 48.
Consortium totalis totius vitae.
Partnership of total life. This is a term used to describe the constitutive elements of marriage, such as maturity and balance, capacity for interpersonal and heterosexual friendship, conjugal complementarity, a sense of material responsibility, and the mental capacity to contribute as parents to the good of children.
Consortium vitae.
Partnership of life. It is impossible to translate the word
Consortium.
exactly. Its literal meaning is that of a close association of persons sharing the same fortune, fate, and destiny. It means less than.
Communio.
The closest of intimate relationships.
And yet is more than.
Societas.
A loose partnership.
In using the word
Consortium.
the law tries to indicate a middle course between the ideal of a perfect union of minds and hearts and the unsatisfactory state of mere external association. Because it indicates more a state of life than a given act, it is difficult to make it into a legal definition.
Constat de nullitate.
It stands concerning the nullity is in effect, is recognized.
Constitutio.
Constitution, a Vatican II document that addresses doctrinal questions and offers doctrinal responses. The four constitutions of Vatican II are on the Church, the liturgy, revelation, and the Church in the modern world.
Consuetudo, usus.
Custom, use, an unwritten law introduced by a uniform course of conduct in a community, or the repetition of an action for an uninterrupted length of time by a community that may result in the action having the force of law. It may be universal or particular.
Consuetudo amatoria.
Courtship.
Consuetudo particularis.
Particular custom.
Consuetudo universa.
Universal custom.
Consuetudo vitae.
Way of life, habit of life.
Contestatio litis.
Attesting of the litigation, action by which the terms of the controversy of a lawsuit are defined and determined by decree of the judge so that judgment can follow.
Contra bonum coniugum.
Against the good of the spouses.
Contra bonum fidei.
Against the good of fidelity.
Contra bonum sacramenti.
Against the good of the sacrament.
Contradictorium.
A speaking against, the opportunity granted each party to defend himself or herself against the charges and statements of the other party.
Convalidatio simplex.
Simple convalidation. The Church uses two terms.
Convalidatio.
And.
Sanatio in radice.
To describe the process of healing a marriage. The translation of these terms would be simple convalidation and retroactive convalidation. Convalidation, or the renewal of consent for marriage, is the giving of a new act of consent to a marriage that was canonically invalid because of an impediment that has now ceased to exist or because of a defect in canonical form.
Conventus eparchialis.
Eparchial Assembly, meets to assist the eparchial bishop regarding the special needs of the eparchy.
Code of Canons of the Eastern Churches 235-242.
Conventus hierarcharum plurium ecclesiarum sui iuris.
Assemblies of hierarchs of several churches.
Sui iuris.
Code of Canons of the Eastern Churches 322.
Conventus patriarchalis.
Patriarchal Assembly, in the Eastern Church, a consultative group of the entire church with the patriarch presiding.
Code of Canons of the Eastern Churches 140.
Also known as a Holy Synod.
Convictus conjugalis.
Conjugal living.
Coram.
Before, in the presence of, this word designates the judge before whom a case is tried. Tribunal and writtle decisions are cited by indicating the name of the judge and the date or protocol number of the case.
Corpus iuris canonici.
Body of canon law, a 1,500 document collection containing the Decretum of Gratian as well as the decretals of Gregory IX, Boniface VIII, Clement V, and John XXII, and those collected by John K. Puis, the collection's editor.
Crimen, delictum.
Crime, delict, an external and morally imputable violation of law to which a sanction, at least indeterminate, has been attached.
Cui ius regio eius religio.
Whose rule, his religion, a maxim used to determine the official religion of various parts of Germany at the time of the Protestant Revolution.
Cura animarum.
The care of souls, the pastoral duty for the fulfillment of which the exercise of priestly orders is required.
Curator.
Guardian, a person either appointed by or accepted by an ecclesiastical court to safeguard the rights of another person and to represent that person at a trial in those instances where the person is either of diminished mental capacity or is a minor.
Curia.
Curia or court, a group of administrative officials who assist in carrying out the duties and responsibilities of an office and who act in the authority of the one appointing them.
Diocesan Curia.
Appointed by the bishop and usually made up of the vicar general, chancellor, ecclesiastical judges, etc.
Roman Curia.
The entire group of organized bodies that assist the pope in the government of the church. In this are included the congregations, the tribunals, and the curial offices.